Okay, so this is the NFLDraftHunger.com preview show for the second round and the first round recap. So what do you want to start off on here?
We could talk about, I don't know, we could talk about some of the best picks. We could talk about, just previewing who's available. Wherever you want to go first.
Well, would you agree that the Texans taking Jadeveon Clowney and the Rams taking Greg Robinson were the right picks?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, with Jadeveon Clowney, everybody sees him as kind of their rush strong side linebacker, but I think that that'll actually work. He's not going to drop back into coverage that much, honestly. I mean, it's really going to be for more disguising things and that sort of thing. So, and he's the best pass rusher in this draft class. And I think that even though they were kind of reluctant to take him for whatever reason, I don't really know why they were reluctant to take him, but I think that was a great pick for the Rams. Greg Robinson is one of the most dominant offensive tackles in the last 15 years. And he's also one of the strongest, one of the fastest, and that's a great fit for them. Who they're going to want to run the football. That's all Les Snead has been talking about. They want to get more dominant up front, more physicality on that offensive line, and it'll work out pretty well for them as well with those first two picks.
But would you agree that Jake Matthews might be the more polished offensive tackle there?
Well, he's the most polished pass protector, but he's not ever going to be a road grading offensive tackle. I mean, what gets lost in the shuffle is Jake Matthews is a starting left tackle in the NFL. But if you're talking about being a road grader, being a guy that is going to move people from one place to the next and be a force multiplier type offensive tackle in the run game, chipping to backers, doing those sorts of things. Um, it's really a debate of what you want to do. If you're going to pass the ball 50 times in the game, you want Jake Matthews. If you're going to run the ball 50, 40 times in a game, you want Greg Robinson. But at the end of the day, they're both great talents who just fit the teams differently. Obviously Atlanta wants to pass the ball, a lot. They're a passing offense, so they went with Jake Matthews. But I think with the Rams, they want to run the football. They got Zach Stacy. They got all the elements of the offense that they want. So I think it would be a better fit for them there. But, I mean, in the long run, sure, Greg Robinson isn't as polished as Jake Matthews, but, Greg Robinson has the potential to be an even more dominant pass protector in a couple of years once he gets the right coaching.
I completely agree. But now, the most interesting pick I thought, was Blake Bortles, quarterback. I'm not really too much high on Blake Bortles. I think that he has poor velocity, and I know the measurables. He's strong, he's big, but I wouldn't have taken him. I would have taken maybe a Khalil Mack there. What would you think there?
Well, the Jaguars, they went with their guy. With Blake Bortles, I understand your velocity concerns. A lot of that has to do with his footwork, because a lot of times he'll have all arm throws at times where he just, throws the ball with all of his arm instead of stepping into his throws, which, is a real issue. It's a mechanics type issue, and, he doesn't have the strongest of arm to do that at the NFL level. But when you see the times where his footwork is right, when his mechanics are sound, which happens, quite frequently, it's not like he's incredibly inconsistent at it. When he has his mechanics down on pat, the ball comes out with great velocity. He has great touch. He has great accuracy at the short to intermediate range. He's also, we talk about the mobility, those sorts of things with him. But the Jaguars, they went with him because he essentially has the best upside in this draft class out of all the quarterbacks. He's the tallest, he's the biggest. His game tape at times, he was dominant at times on his film. He's a guy who makes all the throws. It's just that there was some inconsistencies to his game that turned people off, and because when people draft a guy, they want to see him do things with more consistency. But I think in the long run, with the Jaguars, after about 2-3 years, he's going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, probably a top 10, top 12 type guy when it's all said and done a couple years down the line.
Let's say the Jags didn't go quarterback. Where would you have thought Blake Bortles would have gone there?
if Blake Bortles had not have gone there, he probably, the Vikings would have probably been a spot for him to fit that offense because he's Norv Turner's type of quarterback. He likes, even though they took Teddy Bridgewater, he does have, a type of quarterback where he likes guys that are good in the short to intermediate range and also have the arm strength to hit those deep balls. So I think Minnesota would have been a fit. I think Oakland Raiders, even though they, said they really wanted Khalil Mack no matter what, I think if Blake Bortles fell to Oakland, they might have taken him as well because there's a lot of similarities between him and Matt Schaub. I would just say that Blake Bortles long term would be a better version of Matt Schaub, but there's a lot of similarities between the two quarterbacks, from a physical standpoint and from their kind of style of play.
And then the Bills traded up to get to the fourth pick. Did you expect them to get Sammy Watkins? I think it's a great pick. Sammy Watkins is a big play guy. There are concerns that he's just a screen receiver, but I mean, I think he has the tools. What do you think?
I have no issue with the player, because he is one of the best wide receivers in this draft class. I just have issues with giving up next year's first, and another pick to get Sammy Watkins at 4. That's a lot to trade up to get a player, especially a player that is not, he's not Calvin Johnson, he's not Julio Jones. From a physical standpoint, he's not 6'5". He doesn't run a 4.3 40 at that size. He is fast. He is, reasonably big. About 6'1", 200. 4'4". Has great hands. The elite ability to just pluck the football away from his frame, and he also has the ability to be a Percy Harvin type, receiver where you line him up in the slot, you line him up everywhere to be that sort of, speed receiver everywhere, which will work. But when you think about it, giving up, next year's first and all, what they had to give up to get this guy, who's not a Calvin Johnson, who's not an Andre Johnson, who's not that from a physical standpoint, that's just a huge risk. That if it pays off, great. If it pays off, but I just, I like the player. I wouldn't mind him going at 4, but to give up a first and all the extra stuff to get Sammy Watkins, that's just, I mean, they better be really sure that he's going to be the type of player he's going to be, because, his type of receiver, 6'1", 6 foot guys, they're not always the most dominant receivers at the next level.
And especially when this is a huge wide receiver draft class.
Yeah.
And is there really much separation between him and Mike Evans? I mean, I don't really think there is much. Do you think?
No, there isn't, really. I mean, and it's really 1A and 1B in a way. If you like, if you want that Brandon Marshall type, which is what Mike Evans to me is, that Brandon Marshall type. He's not as shifty as Brandon Marshall, but he's stronger than him. He would be your type of guy. If you want your Percy Harvin type, Sammy Watkins would be your type of guy. But at the same time, there's so many wide receivers in this draft class that are guys that, sure, are they going to take a couple years to develop into the type of players that Watkins and Mike Evans are? Yes, but at the same time, you have time to wait with those types of guys, I guess is the best way to put it. But there really isn't any separation between the two. It's really just about what you like at the position, and in my own personal opinion, I think Mike Evans has more upside than, Sammy Watkins, because he's, Mike Evans, 6'5", ran 4.5 as well, has the ability to be dominant at the catch point, all those sorts of things to his game that make him where he'll translate a lot better to the NFL level, and it's really all about translating at the next level, because you're going to run into quarterbacks, you're going to run into all these other monsters, if you will, these freak athletes, and the best way to beat those guys is to have your own freak athletes. And Mike Evans is just more of a freakier type of physical specimen than Sammy Watkins.
And at number 5, I agree with the Raiders pick of Khalil Mack. I think it's a great outside rusher, and he also can play the pass coverage. What would you think about that one?
that was a Reggie McKenzie. That was a Reggie McKenzie pick. They wanted to get a, they wanted to get their Von Miller, basically. Now, he's not as athletically gifted as Von Miller, and he's never going to be that athletically gifted, but, they view him as that rush linebacker in a 4-3, or even a 3-4. I mean, they might go to the 3-4 defense. You never know. I mean, they might go to that, and he could play 3-4 outside linebacker well. And it's a good fit there. So that wasn't necessarily the best player available because there was more rare talent at offensive line and wide receiver, but it fits their scheme. He's going to work out. He's going to be a player for them. I just don't know if he's ever going to be as dominant a player as, say, a Jadeveon Clowney or any number of the top pass rushers that have come out in the last couple of years.
And I completely agree with the number 6 pick of the Falcons, getting I think might be the best offensive tackle, excluding Greg Robinson, and to protect Matt Ryan. What do you think there?
Well, it fits. It tells you exactly what they're going to do, man. They want to pass the football. They want to keep being a pass-happy team. There was talk about them going with, say, a Taylor Lewan or trading up to get Greg Robinson to bring more physicality to that line. But Jake Matthews is basically the safe tackle is the best way to put it. And they need safe. The Atlanta Falcons need somebody to come in and start from day one and protect Matt Ryan, and that's what Jake Matthews will do. I just don't necessarily believe that he has as much upside as the other 2 tackles, but he is the safest in terms of what you're going to get from day one. He's a plug-and-play type tackle.
And Ian has joined the broadcast. Oh, how's it going?
Oh, thank you. It's very confusing. I don't like this Google Plus thing.
Okay. So at number 6, number 7, we got the Bucks getting Mike Evans. Well, what do you think, Ian, on that one?
Made a ton of sense. Obviously, it was a need after they cut Mike Williams or traded him. I can't remember what they did there. You help me out there? They cut him or did they trade him?
Oh my God. Do you know, James?
Oh, I believe they traded him.
Okay. I was never a very big Mike Evans guy, but it's a pick that made a lot of sense.
And then the Browns at Justin Gilbert. Did this shock you guys? Because this shocked me.
It was shocking to me. I don't view him as the best corner in this draft class. He's fast, which is true, but he has stiff hips, and that's the big issue there. It's great to have 4.3 speed, but when you don't have the sort of change of direction skills to go with that speed, it makes you an incomplete athlete. And though he has the highlight reel type catches, because he has the best ball skills in this draft class by far. He makes these crazy, ridiculous interceptions, but his discipline at times is lacking. Sometimes he does, shedding blocks from wide receivers doesn't happen often enough. There's sometimes where he just looks like he's just getting washed out of the play. He's just, I don't know. I didn't get that pick at all. I mean, I was thinking they were going to trade down and take Johnny Manziel and, call it a day. And then they took Justin Gilbert, who's not even the top quarterback to me. And it was just kind of an odd pick.
What do you think of that one, Ian?
Yeah, pretty much the same thoughts. I didn't have him as the top corner. I thought the top corner was Kyle Fuller. Odd that they valued drafting a number 2 corner so highly. Just didn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And then Anthony Barr. I like that pick a lot. I think he's going to pass coverage, suspect, but I think his physical tools will outweigh that. What do you think I think on that one?
Well, with Barr, it's Mike Zimmer is going to be able to work with Barr. I think he looked at it. There's not a lot of premier pass rushers in this draft class, guys. I hate to break it to you. There's Clowney, there's Mack, there's Barr, and then there's a steep cliff off the side of it. Really, realistically, if we're going to be honest about these, because some of these guys are going to have to be really good technicians to be able to have a lot of impact at the next level. And Barr is very raw. You know, his second year at UCLA, he didn't have as big of a improvement from the first year, but this is a guy who was a running back 2 years ago. You know, he's only had 2 seasons at the position, but I think they wanted to bank on the athletic ability of him because he could be kind of a Jared Allen type pass rusher. He has that sort of agility and speed to become that sort of agility rusher for them, but it's going to be about 1, 2, maybe 3 years before he even becomes a close to a dominant football player.
And then another draft pick on number 11, you got the Lions, Eric Ebron. Anyone want to weigh in on that one?
Sure. I seen your comments. I very much disagree with you, as I ranted about on Twitter. I think Eric Ebron was a great fit. I think Joe Lombardi is going to line him up everywhere. He's going to get snaps from the slot, in line, out wide, probably at fullback too if Jim Caldwell has any influence. I think corner probably wasn't as big of a need as some people thought. I really like Greenwood, I really like Slay, I really like Bentley, and I really believe in Terrell Austin's ability to develop them. I'm not too worried about drafting a corner who's probably not going to produce in a rookie season anyway. I think it was more of a second or third round kind of position for them this year. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
But wouldn't you agree that the pass catchers that they have, they didn't make playoffs last year, would you agree that that might not be the right pick to do?
No, I think it was absolutely the right pick. I thought Sammy Watkins was... I didn't love Sammy Watkins either, but the trade up, giving up a first next year to get him, was ridiculous for the Buffalo. So I think Ebron was the best of what was left. Although actually I like Odell Beckham over him, but I think Joe Lombardi being able to line him up everywhere is going to make him more valuable for the Lions than he would be for most teams, because of that versatility you're going to have in all those sub packages.
What about you, James? Well, I'm not the biggest fan of Eric Ebron. In my personal opinion, he, to me, he's not Vernon Davis. He's not Jimmy Graham. He doesn't have that athletic ability. He's fast, but he has a little bit of stiffness to him. He's kind of a joker, type tight end, which is, those can work at the NFL level, of course, but he's not like a traditional, 6'6", 270-pound type guy. He's basically a big wide receiver, is what he was at North Carolina, and he did do some blocking. I give him credit for his effort, and he has, some plays where he did pretty well in line, but, that was at North Carolina. When he gets to the NFL level, I question how well, in terms of his size and just his overall strength, to be able to go up against the top of the top type pass rushers. But, if they use him like you said, being that joker type, lining him up everywhere, that can work. I just, I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of the Ebron pick in the top 10 because I don't view him as that special of a talent.
Do you guys like the Giants' Odell Beckham pick there?
I personally
love that. Yeah, go ahead.
I personally love Odell Beckham. Had I had a choice of any of the wide receivers in the whole draft class, I would have said Odell Beckham was going to be the best of the group 3-4 years down the line. He just has the best combination of physical tools, in my opinion. I think Ruben Randall's development has gone not as well as they'd like. I think they reacquired Mario Manningham, which probably isn't going to go well. He's not the player he was when they won a Super Bowl. With Nix basically being an absentee guy last year, they got to experience what it was like not to have enough weapons on the field. They need to get help for Victor Cruz and Eli Manning. I love the pick.
And then I also love the Rams taking Aaron Donald there. What about you guys?
Oh, I love that pick. That's the best fit possible for them. Because when you think about it, my only biggest issue with Aaron Donald was that when he gets doubled or triple teamed, he gets overwhelmed at times because of his size. But when you're the Rams defensive line, where you got Robert Quinn on one side and you got Michael Brockers in the middle, you can't you can't double team Aaron Donald. He's a special. Anytime he gets double teamed or one on one, he wins those battles. Especially one on one, he'll win those battles 9 times out of 10. So when you think about the fit there, they wanted a more dynamic 3-tech there. That's just a perfect fit. He's a guy that they put in day one, and I'm really excited to see what that defensive line is going to do next year, because that is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to stop all 4 of those guys on that line, especially with Long as well.
You like that pick, Ian?
Oh, that defensive line is scary. Quinn is one of the best pass rushers in the league, and Brockers and Chris Long are 2 of the best run defenders at their position in the league. Having Donald being able to pass rush from the 3-tech is going to be very hard to scheme against, just as James said. I'm at a loss for words at how good that potentially could be.
Any other pick that surprised you a little bit in the first round and that you want to talk about?
Well, probably, the pick that surprised me a lot was the Calvin Pryor pick for the New York Jets. I'm not the biggest of a Calvin Pryor fan. I think he's a guy that is not a day one safety because he takes poor angles. He gets over aggressive. I don't even see him as that special of a talent at the safety position. Because I know he has the highlight reel type plays and stuff like that, but he's kind of stiff at times when he's moving around at times, and I just don't get it. You're the New York Jets. You need offensive line help. You need, even a wide receiver, for crying out loud. You could have gone there. You could have gone tight end. You could have gone a number of different ways. And instead they took a safety who, in my opinion, is kind of a third-rounder safety on my own board, because he's just – I don't think he's ready for the NFL. And, Rex Ryan is obviously a great coach, and he's going to be able to coach him up and improve his technique and those sorts of things. But I don't think he's ever going to be a dominant safety. At best, you're getting a starter. And, the New York Jets, I just don't get that pick, man. That's just like, really, you're going to take, a project safety in the first round? That just really surprised me.
And even if you chose safety, wouldn't you choose HaHa Clinton-Dix?
Well, with HaHa, maybe. Me personally, I view this entire safety class as second rounders, in my personal opinion, because I think that we have polished guys like HaHa Clinton-Dix that don't have the best top-end athleticism for the position. They're starters, but they're not dynamic players. And so I wouldn't necessarily, if I was in the second round and HaHa was on the board and Pryor was on the board, I'd take HaHa. But, in the first round, I wouldn't really take either of them, because I view them as polished. I view HaHa as a polished product, but I just don't see him as a guy that going to be a dynamic player at the next level.
On the Dolphins side, Ja'Wuan James, offensive tackle. Now that was a surprise. If you would go offensive tackle, who would you have went with?
With me, I would have gone with Ja'Wuan James. I know it's a surprise pick, but when you put on the tape, you look at how he tested. The Dolphins, this is kind of like a Kyle Long pick, like what Chicago made last year, where everybody's like, why would they take Kyle Long in the first round? And he ended up being a Pro Bowler. Well, that's the same thing with Ja'Wuan James. It's from a metric standpoint, just athletic ability, he's Michael Ruse. He's metrically almost exact carbon copy of that type of a player. He's a guy that can play left tackle. He can play right tackle. And if you watch the tape at SEC, he had some issues with counter moves and those sorts of things, but all of his issues are fixable issues. He doesn't have physical limitations at the position. And, tackle is obviously a position that people reach at, but I think Ja'Wuan James was worth it at that point of the draft, especially since, the pick would have been Ryan Shazier, but the Pittsburgh Steelers swooped in and took him instead. So, but I think Ja'Wuan James is a good pick there, in my personal opinion.
You wouldn't go Morgan Moses or Quandro over him?
I'd go, yeah, definitely. I mean, Cyrus Kouandjio is not that. I mean, the guy ran a 5.59 at the combine. On top of that, he has the knee injury issues, which was part of the reason for it. I'm not taking a guy that has a knee injury that could possibly end his career in the first round. And in terms of Morgan Moses, I like his size, I like his length, but he doesn't have the same sort of athletic ability. And I also think tape-wise, Ja'Wuan James is better on tape. He finishes more often. He's stronger. He has more agility. And just overall, even with those two guys on the board, I would have gone James.
Breeze needed a wide receiver, and do you agree with them taking Brandon Cooks here?
I like Brandon Cooks. I think he's going to have kind of a Lee Evans type impact. He's obviously a speed guy, but they already have a speed guy in Kenny Stills, which was what kind of threw me off a little bit with that pick, especially trading up to get Brandon Cooks. I think it's just adding more weapons to the team, but I think in this wide receiver class, with all the wide receivers that are available, why would you take Brandon Cooks when you could take Robert Huron? Why would you take Brandon Cooks when you could take, Cody Latimer? Why would you take Cody? There's so many wide receivers in this class, every type, slot, big, small, fast, that you're going to take a guy like Brandon Cooks who I don't believe is going to become a dominant player at his position. I think he's a starter, obviously, but I don't think he has the sort of strength, that's the biggest issue with him is in terms of press coverage. Now, of course, New Orleans is going to put him in positions where he can't get into press coverage, and he might end up producing a lot of points in that offense. But New Orleans is always funny when they draft players in that part of the round because it's just I don't know. I didn't view it as good value to trade up and take a guy like Cooks.
Ian?
I thought he was a second or third round guy. I like the fit in New Orleans because I think they're going to move him around a lot. I think it's probably a hybrid outside speed guy and kind of a Lance Moore. I think they'll try and work him on the underneath, and I think they'll probably give him some snaps from the backfield too to compensate for what they lost with Darren Sproles. Speed is nice. He's obviously a great athlete. I think they probably reached. Although, if they're planning to work him on the underneath, I understand. Because most of the guys that are left are guys that are going to work the perimeter, like Devontae Adams, Cody Latimer, Marquise Lee, Kelvin Benjamin. Those are guys that are going to work on the outside. Especially if you don't like Marquise Lee's knee, I think it made some sense.
Do you guys view Johnny Manziel better than a Teddy Bridgewater?
I think upside-wise, yes. Johnny Manziel, in terms of his short to intermediate, is a little bit better. He has a little bit more arm strength to him. He has legs. He can make more dynamic plays, with his legs than Teddy Bridgewater. But I think in terms of being NFL ready and being a guy who understands the offense at its highest level, and being a guy that can come in and won't have as many. I think Teddy Bridgewater's obviously going to have, some mental mistakes and those sorts of things, but I think with Johnny Manziel, he's just a guy that's just a couple years away from, in my personal opinion, being as dominant of a player as he can become. But with Teddy Bridgewater, you're getting a starter, guy to plug in from day one. But I think, I hate to say the upside kick with stuff like that, but I think Johnny Manziel, just because of his ability to not only be dynamic with his arm, but dynamic with his feet, I would kind of take that over Bridgewater. Though I do think that they're both players that are going to be successful at the next level.
What do you think about that, Ian?
I think I prefer Teddy, but they're both really not at the caliber where they're can't miss guys. And I think they both went to the right fits. I think Teddy's going to do better off in a more pro-style offense, and I think Kyle Shanahan will get Johnny Manziel in the right positions in the Cleveland offense to succeed. I think his time with Robert Griffin probably opened him up to some ideas with how to use the running quarterback. And James is absolutely right. Johnny has tremendous potential. I don't know if it's the same potential as Blake Bortles, but it's up there. And I can't disagree with the pick to Cleveland take him over Teddy. I think he's a better fit. Especially you're going to play all cold weather, and you got to worry about the hand size and blah, blah, blah. So I really liked Johnny in Cleveland and Teddy in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think Teddy will flourish with the Adrian Peterson type thing and doing play action. I think he's a great play action quarterback. You guys think that too? Because I think he is.
Yeah, and he's gonna be. He's gonna be kind of, and I hate to say game manager, but game manager in kind of the Russell Wilson way. Where he'll make key plays in key moments, but the bulk of the offense, the driver of the offense, will really be, Adrian Peterson, for the most part, for the first couple of years, until he finally gets his groove and builds up the chemistry. But and Mike Zimmer is a defensive head coach as well, so he likes safer quarterbacks. And Teddy Bridgewater is very conservative of a quarterback in my personal opinion. He doesn't take a lot of chances with the football, doesn't throw a ton of interceptions. He's a high completion percentage type of guy that he just fits, Mike Zimmer's personality. He fits what they want to do, and I think it's a good fit for them. Johnny Manziel is not a fit in the Vikings offense. I hate to say that, but I could just see Mike Zimmer, the defensive head coach, just losing his mind with the times where Johnny Manziel, fumbles the football or, throws a really stupid interception and just, those types of things drive defensive, coordinators out of their mind when they have quarterbacks like that. But Teddy's obviously the better, personality fit in that offense.
Many people question the D4 pick. Do you guys question that?
Yeah, I just don't know what they're going to do with him, because I think he could play, a 3-4 inside linebacker if he learns to use his hands better in order to shed blocks. Because that's my only real issue with him is he kind of gets washed out at times in the run game. In terms of being a 3-4 outside linebacker, he's undersized for the position. I understand people are saying that it's because of Tamba Hali, like there's rumblings and issues with him. But I don't think D4 is ever going to be Tamba Hali. I think he's a starting, rusher. His best fit would probably be like a 4-3 strong side linebacker, like a Von Miller type rush linebacker in that sort of scheme. But I just don't know what they're going to do with him yet. And once I figure that out, I'll finally know if they're going to use him the right way or if they're going to think he's going to be their future 3-4 outside linebacker, because I don't know if he can. I don't think he's strong enough or has the length to play that position at a high level.
Ian?
I think their plan is for him to be the future 3-4 outside linebacker. I think they're kind of lining things up to release Tamba Hali after this season. I don't know if he can do it or not. He probably was a better fit in a 4-3 defense, but I kind of have to defer to the NFL guys on that. if they think he can do it, I guess I understand the pick.
Any more picks that were a little surprising? I know Dominic Easley was surprising.
Yeah, that was pretty. It's, I guess they're in win now mode because Dominic, 2 knee injuries, not 1, 2, and though he is a top 10 player, if he hadn't hurt his knees, he would have been a top 10 player in this class because that's just how. Just the first couple games this year at Florida, this year, and then of course the bowl game against Louisville, he was just a dominant player in terms of his quickness and his potential to be just a disruptor in the middle of a defense. But 2 knee injuries, kind of a fluke one. You take him in the first round because the Patriots, I guess, are banking on him, being healthy and performing, but it's really a boom or bust type pick there. If he stays healthy, that's gonna change the Patriots defense in dynamic ways because they already have Revis, they got Browner, they add a guy like Easley who could be a dominant 3-tech in the middle of that line. That could drastically change that defense. But if he's not healthy, if they have to redshirt him his first year because he's still recovering, he's still rehabbing off of that ACL, I don't know. It's a really risky pick, but it was really surprising for them to make that type of a pick because usually Bill Belichick is not that risky when it comes to first round picks.
Ian?
Yeah, he's a great talent. I think Vince Wilfork's 33, Tommy Kelly's 33. They're both actually Tommy Kelly is coming off an ACL himself. It's an odd position to put yourself in that you would go so risky to try and supplement your older interior defensive line, but the talent at defensive tackle isn't very good this year. I mean, unless you wanted a nose, which would be Lewis Nix, I don't know who the next guy is after Easley. It's a while down. A lot of people have hype around Timmy Jernigan. He's probably a third-round player. So it's a position that if they felt they needed to improve on it, I understand it, I guess. It's just a really lack of depth at that position in the draft that really made it a necessity for them to make that pick here if they felt that they had to improve that position.
Any more picks in the first round that you guys want to hit on?
I think that's about it for me.
Okay, so now we kind of preview the Texans pick. Where do you guys think they'll go with this one?
Me personally, I think they're probably going to go with a defensive. They might go quarterback. I just don't think that Carr is. I don't know if he fits. What Bill O'Brien likes to do. Because Carr is kind of a West Coast quarterback with a strong arm. I hate to say Zach Bittenberger is Bill O'Brien's guy, but I just keep thinking about all the guys that Bill O'Brien likes in his quarterbacks, and Bittenberger keeps coming up, and I don't think they're going to take him at the top of the second. I mean, they might be crazy. I think they'll probably go defense. Maybe like a Rashid Hageman, that type of guy, Stephon Tuitt, somebody to fill in that 3-4 defensive end spot that they don't currently have on roster because they need a nose tackle, they need a D end. Lewis Nix has been talked about by a lot of the ESPN guys as the guy to possibly be there, but I think Hagman has more potential to be a more dominant player at the 5-tech spot than Lewis Nix at the nose tackle spot. But either one of those guys I would probably expect to go at that part of the draft.
Yeah.
I could definitely see D-line. I'd like to add that I think Tony Ely in the other defensive end spot could be a possibility. Antonio Smith was never that big of a guy, so they could try and go smaller at the other DN spot, like Coney Ely, who probably fits best as a defensive end in the 3-4 anyway. But I think and expect them to go offensive line, possibly Xavier Suafio, I believe it's pronounced. I really like him. I thought he was a first-round guy. And that line didn't hold up very well last year, other than Dwayne Brown. So I think they get back to their running ways and take an offensive line.
As we kind of, so do you guys think they'll take a quarterback third round?
With who?
The Texans.
Third round, definitely. I mean, I think the Texans are definitely going to take a quarterback in day 2. Whether it's Carr, whether it's Mettenberger, even though I think Met is kind of a better fit, but I think definitely whether it's third round, second round, they're going to take a guy for Bill O'Brien to kind of groom and do his thing with.
Do you believe the Ryan Mallett deal?
No.
I don't see him as value. I mean, why would you trade a third-round pick for that guy when you could draft Mettenberger in the third round? Maybe if they go a different route in round 2 and then there's a run on quarterbacks and they can't find a guy, maybe they panic and make the deal, but I don't think they go into today wanting to make a deal.
And as the Redskins go into the with the first pick, do you think they go offensive line?
Certainly possible.
Yeah, possible. Maybe.
The team won 2 games last year, right, or 3? They certainly have a lot of needs. Need safety. You need defensive line help. You need offensive line. Depends on who they have the highest grade on, I suppose.
Do you guys see second round, any surprises you think are going to happen, and who do you think will be the best value in the second round for anyone, any team?
Well, I think, in the second round, I think, that's where a lot of the wide receiver value is going to come off the board. So guys like Cody Latimer, Bruce Ellington, Dante Moncrief, Allen Robinson, those guys in any other draft class could have been, potential first-round picks, in my opinion. Obviously, the tight ends are going to be good value here. Guys like Safarian Jenkins, Jason Morrow, Crockett Gilmore might be a surprise to go, in the third round. He could be like a tight end that goes in that area. Running back wise, this is where most of the running backs, well, maybe not all of them, but where at least the top backs who the NFL believes that the top backs are going to go, where you have guys, Bishop Sankey, Jeremy Hill has been talked about a little bit. I don't like Jeremy Hill, but apparently some people in the NFL do. Carlos Hyde, definitely the other guy in there. Lake Seastrunk could end up going in that area as well. But I think overall, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive guard, especially as well. Trey Turner out of LSU, Joel Bitonio. Those guys, I think, there's a lot of offensive depth in that area to be had in the second round, third round.
Do you rate who do you rate as your top running back?
For me, I'm a Trey Mason guy. I love Trey Mason. I love his vision. I love his power. Love his speed. I know I keep getting questions about his vision. People going, "Oh, I question his vision and this and that." And every time I keep going back to the tape, I don't see issue with his vision at all. There are times where, now, of course, pass protection is something he needs to improve upon, but I think he has a good punch to develop that sort of thing. In terms of pass catching, he's not the most dynamic of a pass catcher, but I think he can get it done from being a check down back. But to me, he's the top back in this class. But it is close. For me, my top 3, is Trey Mason, Bishop Sankey, and Lake Seastrunk. There's not much divide between them and Trey Mason, but I think for me, I'm kind of a Mason guy.
And who would you say would be the first running back taken off the board here? Into who?
Man. probably Carlos Hyde. You know, probably Carlos Hyde to maybe
Tennessee, maybe Browns.
maybe Tennessee. Yeah, maybe Tennessee, maybe the Browns. Could be a possibility there. Jeremy Hill, you know, there's a lot of talk about him. When you look, just watch the tape. You know, Carlos Hyde, although I'm not the biggest Carlos Hyde fan, if you like a big power back who can catch the football and actually is a decent blocker as well, you know, that's who Carlos Hyde is. Because Jeremy Hill, in terms of, from a pass protection standpoint, he never did it at a ton. He didn't get a lot of reps at LSU. He wasn't the primary back in pass protection situations. In terms of his ball skills as a running back, he's the type of back that has to see the ball leave the quarterback's hand to catch it. So Jeremy Hill might be the top back that goes off first, but I think Carlos Hyde, based on the tape and based on the measurables that guys like about that type of guy, he'll probably be the first to go in the second round. And probably the Browns would definitely be a fit there.
Ian?
I think it will be Trey Mason to the Titans. I'm a big Trey Mason guy myself. Rustin is a big Southern guy. I think you'll see his Southern influence shine through as he takes. I don't know what the hell's going on. Something's going on behind me. As he takes the ultimate Southern back and Trey Mason and yeah, that's where I am. They have a huge need at tailback. Otherwise, I would say all these guys are going to end up falling out of round 2 and into round 3.
Kyle Brandon-Noy, outside linebacker, is an interesting pick. Where do you guys see him going? Or do you see him going second round?
You know, he could go in the second if a team really needed an inside linebacker, but I think he's more likely to go in the third. And I hate to say that because he is one of my top inside linebackers in this class, but, you know, if a team really it would be kind of a reach for him to go in the second because I think he's a starting inside linebacker, you know, football instincts off the charts, but the athletic ability isn't, you know, top tier, but, you know, he could possibly go in the second round, third round area and probably go to a team. The 49ers might, you know, look at Kyle Brandon-Noy as a guy to add, you know, kind of as an inside linebacker, because they had the whole, you know, they had Bowman last year, had that terrible hit, you know, last year where it was just a gruesome, you know, injury that they might want to hedge their bets. If he comes back 100%. But any 3-4 team that needs an inside linebacker, any 4-3, the Giants are definitely a spot for him as well because they need linebackers that can play, you know, strong side linebacker, middle linebacker, weak side linebacker, so they could be a possible fit there as well. But I would bank more on him going in the third round, you know, maybe the top of the third round, mid-third round area.
Any more predictions you guys want to make in the second round here?
No second round prediction, but I think Dree Archer comes off the board in the third round.
Into who?
No clue.
Okay, it's about 30 more minutes to the draft. I want to thank you guys for joining me, and yeah, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well.
Okay, bye.